Good morning and welcome to our daily devotional from Pilgrim Congregational Church. I'm Patrick Horn. Very glad to have you with us this morning as we continue our look at Exodus chapter 20, which is one of the accounts of the Ten Commandments. I'm going to have us focus on what I believe is the fourth commandment, which has to do with keeping the Sabbath. So in this version, there are several verses that go with this commandment. So I'm going to read those verses, which begin in Exodus chapter 20, verse 8, and go through verse 11. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. You shall not do any work. You, your son or your daughter, your male or female slave, your livestock, or the alien residents in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that is in them, but rested the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and consecrated it. Well, as I was reading this in Bible study Tuesday night, I interrupted myself to say, what a quaint idea. This, of course, is a part of Western civilization, and particularly, of course, those areas influenced by Judaism and Christianity. And this, in many of our areas of childhood and growing up, of course, Sunday had a very special kind of meaning. It certainly was set apart. It was not something that we particularly chose. I certainly didn't choose it as a child. I was sort of brought up in that sort of context. But interestingly, it was in my growing up that this idea began to change throughout the country pretty steadily, so that most Sunday laws have been repealed or not enforced in any way. So it does raise, of course, the very interesting question about the violation of this commandment. I can remember when I was working in Washington, D.C. for the Baptist Joint Committee on Public Affairs, and there were several different Baptist denominations that we worked with, about 13 different ones. And one of them was called the Seventh-day Baptist General Conference. And it was very Baptist, almost in every possible way you could imagine, except that they held to this idea that worship should be on Saturday. And so they worshiped on Saturday. What was interesting in having conversations with people from that denomination, I think for them, it was, of course, a serious matter, but I don't think they would have called it an ultimate matter. It was mainly, of course, it was traditional, but also it was mainly a matter of what they felt was the proper interpretation of the text, that the Sabbath should be observed on Saturday. Now, of course, we run up against the problem not just of the Sabbath being a day to cease our work on, but now we run up against the problem of finding any time that we don't work. It seems that we live in a culture that is driven by a kind of obsession with working. And in fact, many people in our culture would place value on their own lives based on how much work and production that they manage to achieve. And there is a problem in this, and I think that idea does go against the spirit of this commandment. And it seems to me that Jesus' teachings had to do with trying to identify the spirit of the law, the spirit of the commandments, and to live according to that spirit. And in this case, I think it's fairly clear that a time of rest is needed, not simply for the body, which of course is essential, but for the mind, for the soul, a time when we recognize that, that God himself was said to have rested, and that this time is therefore a time of rest is consecrated. So it does seem important, this commandment, especially given the fact that this commandment came to people who had been slaves, and they would not have had an opportunity to rest on a certain day. A very, very important reminder. I know, of course, that it's not practical for most of us to identify a single day, whether Sunday or Saturday or a day of the week. Very difficult for us to carve out a single day with the kinds of work and responsibilities that we have. But it does seem to me that we should strive to align ourselves with the spirit of this commandment, that is, to be certain to find time for resting. Let's close with this word of prayer from George Matheson. O thou divine spirit, that in all events of life art knocking at the door of our hearts, help us to respond to thee. We would not be driven blindly as the stars over their courses. We would not be made to work out thy will unwillingly, to fulfill thy law unintelligently, to obey thy mandates unsympathetically. We would take the events of our lives as good and perfect gifts from thee. We would receive even the sorrows of life as disguised gifts from thee. We would have our hearts open at all times to receive, at morning, noon, and night, in spring and summer, and winter and fall. Whether thou comest to us in sunshine or in rain, we would take thee into our heart joyfully. Thou art thyself more than the sunshine. Thou art thyself compensation for the rain. It is thee and not thy gifts we crave. Knock, and we shall open unto thee. Amen. Thank you for joining me this morning from Pilgrim Congregational Church. I'm Patrick Horn, and I hope that you have a very good day. Goodbye.